Times front page for Tuesday, July 26, 2022. Thanks for joining us. I'm George Gerbo. The war in Ukraine may be drawing two of America's biggest adversaries closer together. North Korea this month formally recognized the embattled Donetsk and Luhansk provinces in Ukraine as independent republics. It joins Russia and Syria as the only governments in the world to accept those claims. Ben Wolfgang reports the developments come as Russia projects more rhetoric over its ambitions in Ukraine. Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov claimed in a recent speech to Arab diplomats that Russia's overarching goal is to topple Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky's government. Cracks are showing in support for former President Trump after public hearings by the House January 6th committee. Dave Boyer reports Trump's favorability ratings have slipped in public polling since the hearings began in June. In April, the difference between voters who liked him and those who didn't was only negative 3.5 percentage points in the Real Clear Politics average of polls. By Friday, after the 8th hearing by the House committee investigating the pro-Trump riot at the U.S. Capitol, his favorability rating was underwater by 10.9 percentage points. Some conservative media are also distancing themselves from Trump in the wake of testimony that he did little or nothing for the more than 3 hours during the riot, while his supporters attacked law enforcement and vandalized the Capitol. A wall of remembrance will be dedicated this week at the Korean War Veterans Memorial on the National Mall. The $22 million privately funded wall features 100 4x5.5-foot panels, each weighing as much as 8 tons and displaying about 450 names. Together, they list the more than 36,000 Americans who died in the conflict and the 7,174 Korean soldiers who died while serving in U.S. military units. Sean Salai reports the wall is the focal point of a larger $24 million renovation that Congress authorized in 2016 to update the memorial, which opened in 1995. The renovation has also replaced the engraved names of participating countries and casualty figures with stainless steel letters, refinished the stainless steel statues of the memorial, and upgraded the memorial's lighting and trees. You can read all of these stories at WashingtonTimes.com/front page. You can also find the entire lineup of Washington Times news, commentary, and sports podcasts at WashingtonTimes.com/podcasts. People are increasingly getting away with murder in America's big cities, with police saying they are no longer able to convince low-level offenders to give up information on big targets. Law enforcement sources tell R. Jeff Murdoch the criminal justice reform movement, combined with policies of select progressive prosecutors, leave them with fewer cooperating witnesses whom they need to crack homicide and other serious criminal cases. Washington, D.C.'s Metropolitan Police Department has cleared 49% of its homicide cases through July of this year, compared with 65% during the same period last year. In Cincinnati, police have cleared 61% of homicide cases so far in 2022, compared with 71% at the same point last year. And in New York City, the homicide clearance rate was 80% for the first quarter of 2022, far above the national average of 54%, but a drop from 86% during the first 3 months of 2021. And finally, 2 conservative advocacy groups are offering model legislation for state lawmakers to ban bias reporting systems from college campuses. Sean Salai reports the Arizona-based Goldwater Institute and Speech First jointly released the one-page document last week. It targets universities whose bias reporting systems solicit complaints from students, faculty, and others about offensive or unwanted speech. An April survey by Speech First found that 454 out of 821 domestic colleges and universities have implemented bias reporting systems. Find all of today's front page stories at WashingtonTimes.com/front page or on the Washington Times app, and find us wherever you get your podcasts. Just search Washington Times in any major podcast app. You can also find us on Twitter and Instagram at Wash Times for breaking news, sports, commentary, and more. For the Washington Times, I'm George Gerbo.